Let us arrive fully together. Here in this space, with clear eyes and full hearts, let us enter sacred space.
To stay at the side. No. Hello. Hello. I'm Worship Associate Celia Ortenberg, and I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. We invite those of you who are Zooming or streaming to this service to light a chalice or a candle at home while Reverend Dana lights our chalice for our free faith here in this sanctuary. We begin our service this morning with these words from Reverend Natalie Fenimore, found in the UU Meditation Manual, Voices of the Margins. We are called by wind and rushing water, the fireflies, the summer sun. Called by the sidewalk, the playground, the laughing children, the streetlights. Called by our appetites and our gifts, our needs and our challenges. Called by the bottle, the needle, the powder, the pill, the game, the bet, the need, the want, the pain. The cure, the love, the hope, the dream. Called by the spirit of love and hope and visions of God's purpose for our lives, we are called. What do we choose? How do we answer? Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Bjerke, the music director, and I'd like to welcome you all here in the sanctuary and online. I'd like to invite you to join me in singing our opening hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. Please rise in body or spirit. Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
My name is Fidelity Ballmer. I'm the Director of Religious Education here. And today we're doing something a little different for our Time for the Child. So I finished up my senior year of college on Zoom last May, and it got to the point where I had so many tests and essays and assignments and final projects to finish up that I had kind of dug myself into a deep, dark hole of work. So I want you to raise your hand in this room, and if you're on Zoom, you can type in the chat box, me too. If you have ever had that happen, where you are so overwhelmed that you're like, I can't even figure out what the next thing to do is, right? Anyone been there? Okay, we got a lot of hands in the sanctuary, okay. So I had dug myself so deep into a hole that I was frenetic, right? I'm like, okay, this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing. I'm like, just focus on one thing for more than 10 minutes, Fidelity, right? And what happened was I called my friend Whitney and I explained the situation, and a couple days later, I got a text message that was just a YouTube video, okay? It was just a YouTube video, and I pressed play and watched the whole thing, and that's when I went, yep, that's what I needed, and that's the answer for this situation, right? So this is a song by Zoe Toby called Small Sweet Steps. And I invite you, I'm going to be dancing up and down the aisles. We were doing some interpretive dance today, yes. So if you are called to move in your chair, or if you are called to stand up and join us in dancing in the sanctuary, at home, on Zoom or YouTube, whatever works for you, we are going to dance to this song, Small Sweet Steps, for our Time for the Child. So I invite you to join me. Here we go.
When you wake and feel the day's already gone, the sun is rising but your faith is going down, and you're losing hope a change gonna come. You gotta tune your station to a higher sound. When the way seems blockaded and you just don't have the might, give some praise that you're frustrated. No, you ain't wrong, you're on the edge of something right. Take a small, sweet step, give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. When you're riding and the fog has got you blind, remember you're the sky that holds the clouds. Born with a hero's heart and a monkey mind. On the planet of commitment, there is no doubt. So when the way seems blockaded and you just don't have the might, give some praise that you're frustrated. No, you ain't wrong, you're on the edge of something right. Take a small, sweet step, give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. And you know you got to be crazy to look at the game and think you're okay. You're in the very last minute, the very last play. Scoreboard's not on your side, but aside, your heart is a beat. It's a song on your tongue and a dance on your feet. You came here to bring to the game what you got, and a lose ain't never the prize. You got to take a small, sweet step, give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. Take a small, sweet step, give it all you got.
Thank you. That was lovely. I needed that in my heart today. So the reason why I think this spoke to me so much in that moment, right, is because I was such in a deep, dark hole spell, right, down here, and I couldn't see any way out of it, right? And this reminds me of how, as Unitarian Universalists, we have such a this worldly focus, right, where we share different understandings of what might happen after we die, right? But we all agree that what happens in this world matters. We can create heaven together in this world, and we can exist and have moments of hell on this world too, right? Yeah, so I'm at the bottom, right? And I'm like, I can't possibly imagine ever feeling out of this. And what Whitney tells me is that the steps to get out of them can be so sweet, right? They can be so sweet. So I'm like, the steps themselves can have sweetness. So as I was thinking of what's the next best thing, what's the next thing on my plate, do that thing and then get out of it, I'm like, I did it and then I savored it. There it was, there's some sweetness. And sweetness by sweetness by sweetness, I dug myself out of the hole and managed to graduate with no credits to spare. And that's the story. Thank you, everyone.
So I also want to thank you all for dancing or not, as you were called. I have been at times, I did, if you got here early, some people got a little bit of a forewarning that there might be some movement. And I know that I have been at times at churches or various places when it's like somebody tells me to get up and move, and I'm like, do not make me. So like sit on my hands. And we're all in different places all the time and different comfort levels. So thank you all for doing what worked for you in those moments. I am grateful for it all. And for you. Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our collection to organizations in our larger community or to funds that help people in our own church. Those of you at home have two ways to give: through the link that is posted in the chat, it'll be up there shortly, or by texting from your phone to the number on the screen here. And folks on YouTube, you can do it through the text thing, the phone number. Here in the sanctuary, you can still text to give, or if you wish to write a check or give cash, you can put it in the basket at the back of the sanctuary after the service. Our offering today goes to this congregation's own Lift Up Your Voice to End Homelessness, says Family to Family Team. On the first Monday of every month, a group of volunteers from this church, along with folks from some sister congregations, show up at the Family to Family kitchen and dining room on Ventura Avenue and get to work preparing lunch for about 120 of our struggling neighbors, for some of whom this is the only meal they might have in the whole day. And the volunteers cook the food, and then, thanks to donations like this one, fill lunch bags now with so much food that there is actually sure to be some left over for later. And also at this site, they lay out donated clothing for folks, and toiletries and other things. And the volunteers are always sure to welcome them with a big smile and perhaps the offer of a pair of socks. In pre-COVID days, Family to Family was able to invite everybody inside for a hot sit-down meal, and that may yet return. We hope so. But still, in the meantime, let us all take heart, knowing that 120 people or so receive a kind word, a good meal, and a few gifts that truly mean a lot. Thank you for giving generously as you always do. Thank you. She always plays so sweetly and beautifully, and there was just something that really went in this morning. Thank you. And we are grateful for the generosity of this congregation, which weaves together small, sweet threads into a tapestry of love we call community that holds us all.
Part of staying connected within our community is sharing with one another the great or sometimes small joys and sorrows that grace our lives. We place stones in the water for both the celebrations and the sorrows in our hearts. The ripples that go out represent the ways that something touches the heart of one of us and travels through the community to touch us all. You can submit a joy or sorrow for sharing via the link on the website, uuventura.org, or a link in the Thursday email bulletin, UUCV This Week. Those received by 10 p.m. on Saturday will be shared on Sunday. And now, I invite you all to speak out loud or in your heart or write into a chat the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those who may be in need of the loving embrace of this community. By invoking their names, even when we may not hear them, you bring them into this circle of caring that we call community. Lowest score to our family, little baby, and their children. Reverend Dana will now place one final stone in the water for all the joys and sorrows yet unspoken in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
So our middle hymn is usually a meditative hymn, and we invite you to remain seated and let it flow in you and through you. And I want to introduce this particular hymn for a couple of different reasons. It's one of my favorites of all time. It was written by Norbert Čapek, who was a Unitarian minister from Prague, who came to America and then went back in the 20s and the 30s. And we are growing and expanding in our understanding of gender and gender expression. And this hymn is very gender binary, mother and father. And yet, I want to just hold this up and use it the way it is written, because it was written in the 1920s. And not only does it posit a feminine image of God, it puts her first. And so even as we learn and grow and evolve, let us honor the trailblazers of 100 years ago who helped us get where we are today. And so please let this song into your heart, knowing that this is by and from one of our ancestors.
Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight bounces off the ripples to the sky. What to give you, what to call you, who am I? I am empty, time flies from me, what is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts, take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our art.
Our reading this morning is from Marielle Cleary. Acknowledgement of limitations. Knowing that we do not always live up to our best expectations of ourselves, Let us, in quietness, seek the good within, which some call inner light and some call a spark of the divine. Knowing that we live in a society which falls far short of the ideal, let us, in quietness, resolve to do one thing this week to aid those suffering from want and injustice. Knowing that the earth is our home and that we have too often abused and poisoned it, let us in quietness consider how we might be a part of making it more beautiful for all living things. Knowing that each of us has some sorrow or anxiety hidden within, let us consider in quietness how we may reach out to one another with our smiles, our hand clasps, and our encouraging words.
I invite you now into a time of stillness and meditation. Place your feet on the floor if you wish. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so, and breathe deeply into your own body. Consider in quietness how you are called to be in the world. Consider in quietness what goodness inside you longs to arise and shine forth. Consider in quietness how you might reach out, both to give and receive, and thereby creating more kindness. A silent meditation.
If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every woman, calling every man. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, and we're already late. We've been looking for a song to sing, search for a melody, search for someone to lead. We've been looking for the world to change. If you feel the same, then go out and say if you're out there. Sing along with me if you're out there. I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting now.
No more broken promises, no more call to war. Unless it's love and peace that we're really fighting for. We can destroy hunger, we can conquer hate. Put down the arms and raise your voice. We're joining hands today. Oh, I was looking for a song to sing, search for a leader, but the leader was me.
We were looking for the world to change.
We can't be heroes, just go on and say if you're out there. Sing along with me if you're out there. I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting now.
So, it is hard for me to believe that Spike Lee's masterpiece, Do the Right Thing, is more than 30 years old. It debuted in 1989. It was Lee's third film, and I still remember the powerful impact it had on me. It is a story of racial tension on a blazing hot summer day in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of New York City. It ends with an explosive conflict, including the death of a young black man at the hands of the police, a death that eerily prefigures the death of Eric Gardner. And I do apologize if that is too much of a spoiler for you, because I really, really don't like spoilers. And yet, if you haven't seen it, I commend it to you. And if you saw it more than 30 years ago, maybe we should all watch it again. It is not an easy watch at all. And it's an important film, not least because in the 30 plus years following its debut, Rodney King was beaten, Trayvon Martin was shot, And we've seen Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Philando Castile, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and so many more killed by the police. And last week, a self-proclaimed racist drove for hours to shoot African Americans at a shopping center in Buffalo, New York. Perhaps that movie is part of what has helped us since it came out to pay more attention to such incidents, such deaths. And perhaps we can look back on those 30 years and see that what Adrienne Marie Brown tells us is true. Things are not getting worse. Things are getting uncovered. So what's the right thing that we should do? Alas, another possible spoiler, the film doesn't really have an answer. Offers no tidy bow to tie up, no tidy message to guide us. It's not clear what the right thing is in this great big conflict. And none of the characters do the right thing all the time. Some of them do some right things and others not so much, and some of them not much right at all. And yet, before we go too deeply down a hole of despair, I want to pull us out and share my own baseline operating assumptions in ministry and more. Living in this world as a conscious human is an incredibly complex undertaking. You are deeply good. More amazing than you probably fully realize. There is a love that holds you, holds us all. A love that we can also create between and among us. We are called to make that love manifest in our hearts, in our relationships, and in the world. We will never get it right all the time. We can still keep trying. There is always available love, joy, beauty, and unfolding possibility. We need to practice paying attention well enough that we notice it when it arises, and so that we can even consciously create it at times. For this, we need each other. Our lives make a difference, though we will never fully know how. I firmly believe that all this is so, even in the face of so many painful events in the world, so many heart-rending situations that seem impossible to change. Even as I often feel a heartbreaking inadequacy over here in my small corner. What can, in the face of all that is amiss, what can you or I do? What can we do together? One answer is that we can undertake the work of making love more manifest. what the Reverend Gary Gunderson calls doing the next right thing within our grasp. Do the next right thing. And then the next, and the next. So, I share with you this morning at least 2 things happening at our church that might become the next right thing in your grasp. But first, a story. Have you ever had trouble knowing what exactly to do when you hear or see something that's not quite right? A joke that just doesn't quite land right? Locker room talk that degrades women? Fill in your own situation here. This is one of mine. And at an extended family gathering many years ago now, an extended family member told a homophobic joke that used an exaggerated, lispy, stereotypical voice to land the punchline. Most folks around the table laughed, for the teller was, and still is, a very clever weaver of yarns with great comic timing. I even joined in the laughter at first, but I felt icky about it. And then I looked at the younger ones around the table, preteen and teenage nieces and nephews, and I wanted them to know that somebody noticed that this kind of joke could be hurtful. I didn't know, but I did know that one of them or one of their close friends could be LGBTQ. I knew that this joke could actually be hurting one of them. So I said to the jokester, I don't appreciate that level of humor. Perhaps it was not the most skillful way to address the issue, but it's what came to mind, right? The jokester is also very quick with a clever retort, and he immediately shot back, well, then I'll just bring it down to your level. Yeah. I think I laughed at first, though I immediately felt the sting. A couple of minutes later, I slipped away into another room and had myself a good cry. It hurt. I cried because I was hurt, and I was mad, and I was kicking myself for not somehow saying it better. The younger ones who were around the table that night have grown into fine young women and men. And the thing is, the jokester, of whom I am still very fond, has also grown in understanding and acceptance. He still weaves wonderfully comic yarns that yet I have never heard him say anything homophobic again. Indeed, if not a full-on conscious LGBTQ ally, he has learned something and changed, for which I love him all the more. And maybe my small pushing back on his joke was one of the nudges that helped him see things more clearly. Just maybe. Don't know. Yet, as I told this story, you might also have noted the awkwardness and the pain of this brief encounter. Maybe it even made you recall something in your own life that didn't feel entirely comfortable. And it is an awkwardness. It is this awkwardness, this discomfort that often keeps us from saying anything in the moment. It is actually one of the ways that the dominant cultural norms are held in place. This discomfort, this not wanting to stir the pot. And being the one who speaks up, being the one in the story who speaks up, can often feel the worst afterward. We want to speak up. We want to speak out, though it's hard to know exactly what to say, and the fear that it will not be taken well is very real. It's so much easier to laugh along or at least sit and be quiet. And yet, saying something can be the next right thing within your grasp. It is also something that we do that may blossom later, though we may never see its effect. So the question here is, what if we could learn to be more skillful in interrupting the next homophobic joke that we hear, the next dismissive comment that someone makes about women, the next kind of racist, and I'm not quite sure, but still it's a microaggression the next time we witness something like that? That can be one of the hardest for white folks to take up, because the likelihood of someone getting angry and defensive is high. It is easier to let it go and kick ourselves for it later, as painful as that is. And so, here's the next small step that may be within your grasp. Our church is sponsoring a workshop on active bystander intervention training at the church on Saturday, June 18th. This is the brainchild of members Kathleen Wheeler and Diana Kubelos, who have both found great value and utility in such training. It will be facilitated by someone from the DC Peace Team, who are at the vanguard of what Diana calls a growing worldwide movement toward building a more life-serving culture, a revolution of values toward building Dr. King's vision of beloved community with greater compassion, nonviolence, equity, and regeneration. Could this be the next right thing in your grasp? I am personally very much looking forward to this workshop, hoping to learn to be more confident and maybe even more skillful and graceful in gently and firmly saying something when I witness something that feels off or even downright aggressive or threatening. Doing this at church together will also deepen our own sense of community together and strengthen our capacity for justice work within and beyond these walls. We will learn about behaviors from microaggressions to bullying to harassment and how to challenge them constructively and safely, and even possibly to diffuse tense situations and mitigate conflict. It sounds like a lot, though we do get to begin by taking small bites. I am attending this workshop in 4 weeks. Will you join me? I hope some of you will be able to say yes. Another church offering that could be your next right thing is still in the forming stages. Probably will be available in the fall. Susan Franzblau, Fidelity Ballmer, and a few others, inspired by the racial justice work we have been doing the last 3 or so years, are planning to offer a kind of new consciousness-raising group to deepen the conversation about racism and oppressions working together to unlearn white supremacy culture and become critical agents of change. They will be exploring the liberation work of Paulo Freire, Theater of the Oppressed, and Toni Morrison. Pretty cool. Starting in the fall. We hope. These will not be easy conversations. They're not really supposed to be, because this is hard work. Yet I think many of us are ready for this next right step, ready for this to be the next right thing. And it is liberatory work. Liberating, hopefully helping to liberate the oppressed and marginalized, and honestly to liberate our own hearts, because we are all trapped in this in one way or another. Pandemics, wars, tragedies of the world are mostly beyond our grasp to do much about. Yet there is work we can do together to heal our hearts and deepen community, work that will ripple beyond us. Doing our small right things can make more difference than we will ever know. If you're out there, there are other people out there ready and willing to sing with us. We just have to begin with the next right thing within our grasp. I know that the way often feels blockaded. I know that we often feel we don't have the strength, we don't have the might. Yet the deeper truth is that this feeling of helplessness and wanting to do more arises because we are on the edge of something right. The song that we heard all earlier, and we were dancing so much, I wasn't certain that people necessarily caught this particular line. It said, "Praise your frustration." Because that frustration is the thing that lets you know, that discomfort, that awkwardness lets you know that you are on the edge of something right. And so I invite you to take a small, sweet step. Give it all you've got. Just a small, sweet step moving forward. You don't know what's next. And nevertheless, take a small, sweet step moving forward. It's not easy, simple, or short-term work. Things are not really, truly, they are not getting worse. And yet, once uncovered, we kind of have to do something about it, don't we? And what the heck do we do once we've seen it? And yet, as Adrienne Marie Brown also says, we must hold each other, and continue to pull back the veil. And the next, and the next. Through it all, we will not always live up to our best expectations, and we will always carry some sorrow, fear, anxiety, grief, even anger, defensiveness. And yet, still, we are all called. What do you choose? How will you answer? May we reach out to one another, smiling, clasping hands, encouraging each other, always taking each small, sweet step that we can, doing the next right thing within our grasp. Amen, and may it be so. Please join me in prayer. Holy beingness of many names and no name, inner light, spark of the divine, Spirit of life which dwells within and among and beyond us this day and always, may we bear witness with caring hearts to all that is amiss. May our hearts be with the people of Ukraine. May our hearts be with all the families who have lost loved ones in a pandemic. In the United States now, 1 million people gone. In the world, 12 million. May our hearts be with the people of Buffalo, the families who lost loved ones, the town that is reeling, the family of the perpetrator who is also reeling as well. May we open our hearts, move with kindness, and take the small, sweet steps that pull us up out of despair and give us a sense of our capacity to make change in the world, even with only small, sweet steps. And may all those who are ill find healing. May those who are in despair find hope. May those who are without shelter find home. And may all those suffering conflict and war throughout the world, may we know peace. Amen, and blessed be.
Please rise in body or spirit and join me in our closing hymn, When the Spirit Says Do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says do, 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 Spirit says do. You gotta speak when the Spirit says speak. You gotta speak when the Spirit says speak. When the Spirit says speak, you gotta speak. Oh Lord, you gotta speak when the Spirit says speak. 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 You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. You gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you gotta sing. Oh Lord, you gotta sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You gotta rise when the Spirit says rise. You gotta rise when the Spirit says rise. When the Spirit says rise, you gotta rise. Oh Lord, you gotta rise when the Spirit says rise. 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 You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh Lord, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Woo.
Over there, Carolyn. That was fun, Carolyn. Please join me in reading the words that are on the screen as we prepare to extinguish the chalice. Yes. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of the truth, the warmth of the community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
So remain standing for the benediction. I invite all of the folks who are on Zoom into breakout rooms, and I invite you to share with one another in breakout rooms and in our coffee hour out back to share a little bit about what the next right thing in your grasp feels like before you. If you have cash or checks for Ventura Homeless Prevention, no, that was before. For family to family, you can put them in the basket at the back, and look for the sign-up sheets for the summer religious education. Also, the things that I mentioned in the service, there will be information about them. The bystander intervention training has been out for a couple of weeks. There's a registration form. Click on that. It's on. It'll be on Facebook and in our newsletter bulletin, and also be on the lookout for the liberating, consciousness-raising groups coming. They are coming. I leave you with words from Andrea Hawkins Camper. Be about the work. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be. For if not us, who? And if not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now. To be the barrier and the bridge. To be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of building beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience. So go forth in love, go forth in peace, always trying to do the next right thing within your grasp. May it be so.